Welcome to the Career Ready podcast. Learn about resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn, interviewing, and all the things you need to be career ready with the Career Services Center at College of DuPage. I'm your host for today's episode, Rebecca Harrington. In addition to learning about resources in the job search process, an important part of being career ready is understanding different career paths. To help us explore the professions in criminal and justice studies, I have invited Theo Darden on the show today. He is a professor of criminal and justice studies here at College of DuPage. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Rebecca. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, before we get started, we ask everyone this question. Can you share a short introduction or, of course, as we like to call it, an elevator pitch about yourself or your program, whatever you want to share?
My name is Dr. Theo Darden. I'm a professor of criminal and justice studies here at College of DuPage, and I've been here for 20 years now. Prior to that,
Congratulations.
well, I don't. Thank you. Yeah, that's a feat. I've been here for 20 years, as I stated, but prior to that, I spent 17 years as a professional in the criminal justice field, in law enforcement in particular. So, that's just a little bit about my background, but my academic background, is expansive, in terms of my undergrad is in public administration with a law enforcement emphasis. My master's degree is in criminal and justice studies, and I actually have two master's degrees. The other is in higher education, and my doctorate is in criminal justice leadership.
Okay.
So I have that academic background and that professional background that I bring.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's great. I think it's always interesting to hear what people studied and kind of how they got to where they are, because sometimes it's a different path than people imagine. So, yeah, absolutely. So maybe can you tell us a little bit about the field of criminal and justice studies? And just kind of like some of the different career paths. I know we can't get to all of them, but, I think sometimes people like, you talk about law enforcement. I think that's probably the first one people think of. So maybe talk a little bit about within law enforcement, what are some of the career paths? And then I'm sure there are things outside of that as well.
Yeah, as you stated, the field is vast. I think people do when they hear criminal and justice studies. Many people just migrate ultimately to, that's where you go to become a police officer. But the field is well beyond, just that scope. You can go into working with youth in terms of juvenile justice and juvenile delinquency. You can go into working with victim advocate services, working with the elderly victims or just people who simply have unfortunately been the victim of a crime, and there are services that assist those individuals. There are the court services, which monitors and looks over people who are matriculating, through the justice system. So it's like probationary services, whether that be the court services in terms of supervision and supervising people to make sure they're making their appointments, getting to their scheduled um, therapeutic sessions, within the criminal justice system that they have been asked to complete as part of their community supervision. So there are many different fields. And even beyond that, some students want to just use this as a precursor to go to law school. There are several different law enforcement organizations you can work for at the state level, at the federal level, and at the local level. So, and I didn't even mention working, within the jail or correctional apparatuses in prisons, so there are many, many different fields I think that people could explore. I'm just thinking off the top of my head,
Yeah.
data analysis. I just worked with a student yesterday. She was really interested in looking at data analytics and working in crime analysis. And so I was, walking her through that process academically, what that would look like in terms of what type of degrees to pursue. And then internship opportunities within that field to understand what it looks like professionally.
Yeah, that's such a great thing, great topic to think about because especially in a world now where we have so much more data, right? That's certainly something that I think organizations are going to be interested in. And I think it's important too that you talked about the local, state, and federal, that there are so many organizations. I remember in the past we had a student that did an internship with the post office, right? Because they have their own investigative department and all of that. So they're like that's really interesting to think about all the different career paths. And I think important too is that it sounds like there are some paths that maybe only require an associate's. Are there certificates as well that you could get that could get you into a career?
Yeah, that's a great question. I there are some paths where just require an associate degree, and generally
Hmm.
those are for entry level positions.
Hmm.
Getting obtaining an associate degree, you can go into corrections directly. You can go into many police agencies. Local law enforcement only requires 60 college credits to an associate degree, and so that's a good opportunity for students. And then at the federal level, or you're getting into data analytics, or to working with youth in juvenile services or probation and parole services, those require bachelor's degrees. And so there are, different levels,
Hmm.
to this. So students who, are just, finishing high school and look, I'm 18 years old. I know I can't work in this field until I'm 21. And so what a really good path is to get your associate degree, to get an understanding of the field, maybe do an internship, to see what it's really like as opposed to what people think it's
Hmm.
like, you know,
Yeah.
and that helps build that skill set out, right? And then that allows them at the age of 21, 22 to be a little bit more mature with a lot more intellectual understanding of what they want to do, career wise.
Yeah, excellent. So that's a great lead into our my next question, which is what are some of the skills and strengths that students gain when completing that justice studies program? How does it help them prepare for a job afterwards?
I think the skills that we really work on, they're foundationally are the communication skills, which are very, very important to the public service field. And that's what criminal justice studies essentially are. It's a public service field. And you're going to have to talk to people, and you're going to have to talk to people from all walks of life. And so, what's embedded in our program is helping develop those communication skills, helping develop your critical thinking skills, help you develop your research skills, your writing skills. And one of our capstone courses is a course titled Multiculturalism and Diversity, because you're going to be working with people from all walks of life, and to understand the importance, of what that service is to try to meet people where they're at rather than where you're at. And so we've really, bolstered our curriculum, to help build, some people call them soft skills. I call them necessary skills.
Hmm.
These are necessary skills to do that work. And this program really helps, provide that understanding for students, to help them develop those skills that are needed to get into that career.
Yeah, that you are definitely, I think, echoing something that we talk about on this podcast a lot. We call them the NACE competencies, the National Association of Colleges and Employers. They've surveyed all types of employers and asked, hey, what are the skills students need outside of the technical skills? And critical thinking, communication is usually number one. And critical thinking, teamwork, right? And but also multiculturalism is in there as well, and I can see certain fields that being those kind of change around the order of importance, and I think that's great because you're right, definitely anything that's a public service, whether you're in healthcare or criminal justice, you have to anyone that comes across your path, you need to be able to communicate with. So love it. All right. Are there any experiences, you kind of talked about internships, but are there any experiences or opportunities you recommend developing professionals seek out while preparing to start a career? In other words, I think maybe talk a little bit more about the types of internships, and then are there any other experiences that you might recommend for students to do?
Yeah, let's start with the internships. I think, by the time a student gets in their third semester here at the College of DuPage, they should be looking into, what type of opportunities for internships are there. And there are internships that students could get if you want to work in law enforcement. So you mentioned one. People didn't realize, the vast, opportunities at the federal level. And so you mentioned a student of ours, and there have been several that have done internships with the United States Postal Inspectors, which is their law enforcement arm for investigating crimes that
Hmm.
use the United States postal system. But we've had students do many internships with local law enforcement agencies and the state. And so we recommend those to help build their skill set out to understand that field. But also, uh, we have opportunities for students to have internships with youth facilities or with the court services and even in social I'm sorry, social services programs. Many people don't realize that a criminal justice associate degree from College of DuPage could easily transfer into institutions that offer bachelor's degrees in social work, or even sociology, and it helps build their skill sets out to work in those fields too. And so, so that's first and foremost to help build those skills. Seek out internships in the field that you really are seeking, your career path in. And then the second thing that I tell students, and it's not really the second thing, many students think, oh, should I work as a security guard? Could that
Oh,
enhance my skills? What about a community service officer position with a law enforcement agency? Is that like a entry level position? And what I tell them is that actually, when you work in public service, there are a number of things you could do to build your skill set. We just talked about communications earlier,
mhm.
and that is a huge part of this. And so I give the example, hey, if you work in like the food industry, maybe you work in like, a McDonald's, or Burger King or something like that. I said, think about that's customer service. You're going to be working with people. They're going to be asking you for things. They might not come out right. You're going to have to problem solve. You might have to calm somebody down. So I say, if you seek a job out anywhere and you show up to work on time, and you have reports to put together and you have to use your communication skills and work with others, those are all building your skill sets to work in this field. And so don't think of it so narrowly, think about it expansive. And one thing for sure to help build that skill set is, especially for criminal and justice studies, is show up on time, be dependable, be honest, because you know what? You're going to need someone to serve, as a reference for you. And when they do background checks in this field, they're going to look at your last 10 years of work and they're going to contact those employers and they're going to ask about these things that we're talking about, Rebecca. And,
Mhm.
students need to know that. And so, that is really important. And just let me slip this in here, just because I mentioned background checks. If you are using social media of any kind, you had better be careful because they're going to want your passwords and look at your past history of what you have posted online. So be careful with what you are doing out there if you want to work in this field.
Oh, that is so interesting. I had not thought about that. I mean, we think sometimes in general about social media, but that makes sense for this area. That no, they're going to do a deeper dive, than maybe some other other areas when it comes to social media. So, oh, what a great point. And then yes, any job experience, when we talk to people that hire interns and ask, what are you looking for? Their response to me is always students that are doing something. So whether that's being part of student clubs, any kind of job, because like you said, anything that shows that you can show up, be dependable, talk to people, it all counts. Absolutely. That's great. All right. So, what are you doing in your program here at College of DuPage to prepare students for the field? I guess if there's anything else that we haven't talked about yet that you want to
Yeah,
share.
we've really done that. We have special programming too, in our uh, discipline to help students. Professor Stacy Darden has done a number of things in terms of working with youth and special programs that she's gotten Perkins grants for, and the Perkins grants have been very important for our program. And so students have participated in that in the juvenile delinquency courses, and many of them have found career paths by working directly with youth. And so we do things like that where we try to actually have these students work directly with people in the field, whether professionally or people, who might have contact with the field. And so we do that. We have our global justice course that's offered every summer that I actually um, teach. And that course actually is a comparative analysis of the justice system here in the United States and abroad. And so we take students behind the scenes. We go to the DuPage County Jail. We go to the DuPage County Courthouse. We go to the Kane County Youth Facility. We go to local law enforcement agencies who accept us in and show us behind the scenes. And so we talk to those professionals, those judges, those attorneys. We talk to police officers and police chiefs. We talk to youth facilities, and we, go through the DuPage County Jail, and they give us a behind the scenes look. And so students get to see hands on what this looks like in real time. And then we travel overseas, Amsterdam to Ireland and to England, and we go behind the scenes and see what other international countries do in relations to criminal justice to give students a really good opportunity to say, I can expand my thought process. And then a wonderful course, that we have with hands-on that very few people around the country, especially colleges and universities, do, is we have this death investigations course that I developed back in 2007 that we work with the University of Tennessee in terms of their forensic anthropology. And we go down to the body
I
farm
was
to
gonna say the
actually,
body farm. I love it.
we actually, work with human remains and learn about body identification and body recovery in a sense of death investigation. And the DuPage County coroner's office is a big part of that. And as a matter of fact, one of the co-instructors with me is Mary Beth Judy, who is also a adjunct faculty member as well as a deputy coroner. So we really try to give students hands-on experience, to really get up close and personal in addition to those internship opportunities. And so, yeah, this is, trying to prepare them the right way. And very few institutions 2 and 4 year around the country do anything of this nature.
That's fantastic. College of DuPage, we have resources and creativity and just so many things that so many programs don't have. So that's amazing to hear about. I'm very impressed. So I would say even if you're planning on getting a bachelor's degree, starting at COD would be a great way to save some money, but also get opportunities you're not going to get somewhere
That
else.
that is
Uh,
correct. And for those people who are out there that may be listening to this podcast, if you're at a 4 year school, you could take those courses that I just mentioned. You don't have to be, a full-time student here at the College of DuPage. You can actually come and take those courses to help build your skill set too.
Love it. Yeah, especially because you mentioned in the summer. So that's a great idea. I love it. All right. Is there anything else you want to recommend to students or young professionals that are preparing for the field?
Well, I would recommend that they also be in contact with the career services department. I really would. I think students miss, all the resources that we have here to help build out their skill set, to help them, with their LinkedIn pages, with their resumes and things of that nature, and who can connect them, with internship opportunities, or at least, inform them how to go about, getting those opportunities. So I'd like to share that with them. And then we have a, full-time faculty in our field, with a multitude of backgrounds. And, from our chair, Eric Thompson, to Deanna Davison with Homeland Security, to Kaya Forrest in the legal field. And so we really try to even set up our faculty and our adjunct faculty. I mentioned Mary Beth Judy, Dr. Stacy Hayne Darden, and Dr. Steve Shiraka. They all have, backgrounds in the field, as well as the academic, background also to teach in the classrooms. And so there's so many resources that we have, for students who want to go into this field, and they can contact any of us, just by going on the COD website and, typing it in the search engine, criminal justice, and coming to our page, and they can find all those resources there.
Wonderful. And I think that kind of answers the last question there, which is how can interested listeners find out more about the program? I think the website, right, is probably a good place to start. And just so thank you for recommending career services. I will say we also will refer students back to the programs. When we have students that come to us and they're thinking about enrolling in a program, that is one of our main resources, is to talk to faculty, because you guys are the ones that have that special knowledge and such diverse backgrounds. And I think people don't always realize, no, that's part of your job, is to talk to people that are interested in the program and share more information. So that's really great. Any other anything else you want to share about the program, or how people can learn more? Anything that we've missed?
No, I mean, we've really covered it all. I think the only thing that we didn't cover is the wonderful building that we're located in, which is the Homeland
Oh,
Security Education Center, that has so many things that we also use for hands-on instruction, from our forensic science, lab that we have upstairs, to our street scene that many people have. If they come into that building, they just come in and take a tour, just come in and talk to us. And I think people don't realize, and students don't realize, that some of their probably passions align, with the criminal and justice studies field. There are so many opportunities, for people to work in the field, as you mentioned early on, and I really appreciate that you did that. That many people focus and think, oh, this is just about law enforcement. No, it isn't. It's about really public service, to people. It is a helping field. It is a helping profession. It is about victim services and victim advocates. It is about crime prevention. It is about restorative practices. It is about community relations. It's a social services. And there are many people who have interests and skill sets that they could find a wonderful career path, in criminal justice.
I thank you for saying that. I think that's important. I think oftentimes maybe people have a view of criminal justice as a field of who the people are that work in that field. But we often get students that come to us that want to help people. What better way to make that field a good place and to help people than to join it and be a part of the solution, and finding ways to make it better, or to find the good things that are happening and be involved in that, and a way to give back to everyone in our communities, and be part of the solution, you know.
I not have said that better. I'll leave it at that.
All right. I love it. Well, thanks to all of our listeners, and special thanks again to Theo Darden for joining us on the podcast today. We hope you enjoyed hearing about careers in criminal justice studies. And remember, if you have a question for us, you can submit it to careerpodcast@cod.edu or on social media at COD Career Center, and you may hear the answer on a future episode.